My name is Chloe, I'm 29 years old, and what I'm about to tell you isn't a made-up drama from a movie. It's something that actually happened to me. It's a story of betrayal, silence, and revenge served colder than winter rain. If you're watching or listening to this right now, don't forget to subscribe, because trust me, what happened inside our family house will make you question what family really means. It all began on a Thursday afternoon, the kind where the air feels heavy before a storm. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at my mother's face as she yelled the words that would echo in my head for days. "You have 48 hours to get your stuff out, Chloe. That house is your sister's now." For a moment I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled, my lips went dry, and my heart seemed to beat somewhere in my throat. I didn't argue. I didn't even blink. I just looked at her. My own mother, as she pointed toward the stairs, her voice sharp and final. It wasn't the first time she'd raised her voice at me, but this time it felt different. This time, it was like she had made up her mind to erase me. I swallowed hard, nodded slightly, and said nothing. My silence seemed to irritate her even more. "Don't give me that look," she snapped. "You knew this day would come. You've done nothing for this family. Your sister deserves the house. She's the one who stayed, who helped, who actually cares." My sister, Lily, stood behind her, pretending to look sorry, but I could see it in her eyes. That flicker of satisfaction she couldn't hide. She had always been the golden child, the favorite. I was the quiet one, the too independent one who left home for college, who didn't call every Sunday, who didn't show up for every family dinner. In my mother's eyes, that made me ungrateful. In Lily's eyes it made me weak. Easy to step over. But I wasn't weak. Not anymore. That night I packed my things slowly. Every folded shirt felt like a memory, a reminder of how much I had tried to belong. I found old photos in the drawer. One of them was of the three of us on the porch, smiling like we were perfect. I almost laughed at how fake it looked now. When Lily passed by my door, she leaned against the frame, smirking. "You know, Chloe," she said softly, "this doesn't have to be so hard. You could just let go. Move on. Start over somewhere else." I looked up from the suitcase and met her eyes. "I already have," I said and zipped it shut. She frowned, probably expecting tears or begging. But I didn't give her that satisfaction. I didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't plead. Because revenge doesn't need noise. It needs timing. The next 2 days were strangely calm. Mom avoided me mostly, though I caught her whispering on the phone with Lily, probably arranging new furniture or repainting her daughter's house. I moved quietly, removing my belongings, deleting old files, and leaving behind only what I wanted them to find. See, what they didn't know was that while I was the one being thrown out, I was also the one who knew the house better than anyone else. I had grown up exploring every inch of it, even the parts no one remembered. The attic corner behind the water heater, the old crawl space behind the laundry wall, the forgotten key hidden under the porch floorboard. That house held secrets, and so did I. On the morning of the second day I left. I didn't slam the door, didn't say goodbye. I just walked away with a quiet smile on my face and one promise in my heart. They wanted me gone, and I'd give them exactly that. But they'd soon wish I never left. 2 days later, Lily walked into her new house. And that was the day she realized she had made the biggest mistake of her life. When I heard she'd officially moved in, I drove by that evening, parking a few houses away. The windows glowed softly, and from the outside it looked peaceful. Too peaceful. She had always been obsessed with appearances. I could already imagine her redecorating, showing off her new home on social media, acting like she built it with her bare hands. What she didn't know was that some things inside that house were not what they seemed. I had left behind a few surprises. Subtle, invisible at first, but powerful enough to make her question her sanity. Started with small things. The old grandfather clock in the hallway, the one that hadn't worked since I was 13, now ticked loudly at midnight. The attic light flickered randomly, though no one ever went up there. And then there was the mirror in Mom's old room, the one I'd cleaned before leaving, that sometimes showed a faint smudge shaped exactly like a handprint. Lily called me on the 4th day after moving in. I didn't pick up, but her voicemail was shaky. Chloe, I don't know what you did, but weird stuff's happening here. The lights keep going out, and I swear I heard footsteps last night. Mom says it's my imagination, but it's not. You need to tell me if you messed with something before you left. I replayed that message 3 times, smiling every time. Of course, I hadn't haunted the house. But I did know how to make it feel haunted. I had rewired the old motion lights, set timers on the outlets, and even adjusted the attic's vent to make eerie whistling sounds when the wind passed through. It wasn't destruction. It was psychological. I wanted her to feel what I had felt. Powerless, unwanted, unsafe in a place that once felt like home. Mom called me 2 days later, her tone harsh. Chloe, enough with this nonsense. Lily is scared to sleep alone. Whatever tricks you pulled, fix them now. Mom, I said calmly, I haven't been near that house since I left. Maybe the house just doesn't like being lied to. She didn't like that answer. She hung up. But I knew her silence after that wasn't anger. It was fear. Because somewhere deep inside, even she knew the truth. You can't treat people like ghosts and not expect the house to remember. It had been 5 days since I moved out, and already the phone calls had started coming more often. First, it was Lily's shaky voice. And Mom's. By the end of the week, both of them were calling daily, leaving messages that ranged from frustrated to terrified. Chloe, this isn't funny anymore. Whatever you did to the wiring, fix it. There's someone in the house, I swear I heard whispering. I listened to every voicemail like it was music. Each tremor in Lily's voice felt like a small victory. But the truth was, I hadn't touched half the things she thought I had. Some of what she was experiencing wasn't me. That house had history. And maybe I had just helped wake it up. When I was 12, I used to hear things too. Footsteps, knocks, whispers. Mom called it an overactive imagination. I never believed her. The house always had a pulse. It creaked in strange rhythms, hummed at night, and sometimes when you stood perfectly still, you could swear it was breathing. But that was long before Lily started sleeping in my old room, the one where the ceiling cracked in a thin diagonal line, like a scar that never healed. One evening around 10 p.m. my phone rang again. I almost didn't answer, but something in my gut told me to. It was Mom, and she was crying. Not her usual angry cry. This was different. Chloe, please. Can you come over? Just for tonight. Lily's in the hospital. My chest tightened. What happened? She fell down the stairs, Mom said between gasps. She said she heard someone call her name. She thought it was you. For a moment everything went still. I could hear the clock ticking in my tiny apartment. I could almost feel the cold air from that house seeping through the phone line. I'll come, I said quietly and hung up. Driving back felt strange, like walking into the past. The streets looked the same, but I felt like a stranger in my own memories. When I pulled into the driveway, the porch light was flickering, faint and uneven. Typical. Mom opened the door, looking pale and disoriented. She hugged me tightly, and for the first time in years I didn't push her away. Oh, Chloe, she whispered. I don't know what's happening. It's like this house hates us now. I wanted to say it hated me first, but I stayed quiet. I walked through the house slowly, letting the memories crawl up my skin. The furniture had been rearranged, the walls repainted a dull cream. But beneath the newness it was still the same floorboards that creaked in warning, the same air that felt too heavy to breathe. Which room was Lily in when she fell? Asked. The stairs. She said she saw something in the mirror upstairs and went to check. I nodded, walking toward the staircase. The mirror at the top landing was familiar, an antique my grandmother had owned. I'd always hated it. Its surface seemed too deep, too reflective, like it wasn't showing what was here but something behind it. I stood before it now, watching my own face stare back. And for a moment I thought I saw movement, something small like a shadow slipping behind me. When I turned, the hallway was empty. I slept in my old room that night, though sleep isn't the right word. Every creak felt like a whisper. Around 3 a.m., the grandfather clock downstairs began ticking again, even though it had stopped years ago. Then, as if on cue, the hallway light blinked 3 times and went dark. I smiled in the darkness. It wasn't fear I felt, it was confirmation. The house wasn't just broken. It was angry. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't me it was haunting but them. The next morning, Mom was making coffee when she said it, almost absent-mindedly, as if trying to confess something without actually saying it. You know, Lily was never supposed to get the house. I froze mid-sip. What do you mean? Mom sighed, not meeting my eyes. Your father, God rest his soul, left it to you. But Lily needed help. She struggled, and you've always been strong. I thought you'd understand. I put the cup down slowly. You changed the will. I just adjusted things, she whispered, guilt flickering across her face. You have your own life, Chloe. I thought you wouldn't care. For a long moment, I just stared at her. Then calmly I said, I don't care about the house, Mom. I care about what it represents. She frowned. And what's that supposed to mean? That you chose her over me. Again. I left before she could answer. That afternoon I went to the hospital. Lily was lying in bed, her leg in a cast, her eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. When she saw me, her face tensed, but she tried to play it cool. Well, she said dryly, look who decided to visit. I heard you fell, I replied, standing by the door. Yeah, thanks for the concern. You can stop pretending you didn't have something to do with it. I tilted my head, studying her. You think I pushed you down the stairs with invisible hands? Don't gaslight me, Chloe. This house is cursed now. Since you left, everything's wrong. The lights, the sounds, the mirrors. Maybe the house just likes me better, I said softly. Her eyes widened, and I saw it. The flicker of fear, the realization that I wasn't scared of that place anymore. That maybe I had become part of what she feared. When I walked out of that hospital room, I knew something had shifted. Lily was breaking. Mom was unraveling. And the house was listening. That night I went back one last time. Quietly, unseen. I parked behind the old oak tree and slipped through the back door. The air inside was cold, heavy with something electric. I could feel the walls humming softly, like the house recognized me again. I stood in the middle of the living room and whispered, I'm back. And then, for the first time in years, the clock stopped ticking. The night I returned to that house, something changed in me. It's strange how silence can sound so loud when you're standing in the middle of a place that once belonged to you. Every breath I took echoed softly against the walls, as if the house itself was exhaling with me, remembering me. I didn't come back to destroy anything. I didn't even come to scare them. I came to remind them and maybe remind myself that I still existed, that I had roots here, that they couldn't just throw me out and expect the soil to forget. The moonlight spilled through the living room window, illuminating the photo wall. Mom had already replaced half the pictures. Lily at her graduation, Lily at her engagement, Lily holding Mom's hand at the hospital. My face was gone from every frame. Every single one. I stood there for a while, letting that sink in. Then I reached into my bag and took out a single photo, the 3 of us from years ago, before everything turned bitter. I placed it right in the middle of the wall. Not to be sentimental, but to make sure they'd see it when they least expected to. That was the first step. The second was subtler. I went to the upstairs hallway, near the attic entrance, and turned the vent dial I had loosened earlier that week. When the wind hit it, it made a hollow whistling sound, faint but constant, like breathing. Then I adjusted the timer for the hall light. It would flicker between 2 o'clock and 2:10 a.m., just long enough to feel deliberate. By the time I left, the house already felt alive again. And I knew when morning came they'd feel it too. The next day Mom called. Her voice was unsteady, trembling between anger and fear. Chloe, something's wrong with the house again. The lights keep flickering and that clock, that cursed clock, it won't stop ticking even though I took out the batteries. I could almost hear her pacing. Mom, I said quietly, maybe the house doesn't want to forget. Don't start with that nonsense, she snapped. You're the one doing this. I know you. You're punishing us. Am I? Asked softly. Or are you just feeling guilty? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. Later that week, Lily came home from the hospital. She moved slower now, her legs still in a cast, her face pale from sleepless nights. She barely lasted 2 hours before calling Mom again, screaming through the phone that she heard voices upstairs. Mom went over that night, and didn't stay long, because by 3 a.m. I got another call. Chloe, please. Her voice broke halfway through. There's something here. I don't know what's happening, but I'm scared. I should have felt pity. But I didn't. For years I was the one scared. Scared of being invisible, of being unwanted, of being blamed for everything wrong in this family. And they'd told me, you're imagining things. Now it was their turn to question reality. But the truth is, revenge doesn't always look like fire or screaming. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's making someone feel exactly what they made you feel, until they can't stand the sound of their own comfort anymore. Still, there was one thing I hadn't told them. Something I hadn't told anyone. When I was 15, I found a letter in Dad's old desk. It was dated 3 months before he died. In it he wrote, "If something happens to me, make sure Chloe keeps the house. She's the only one who truly understands it. Lily won't stay. The house won't keep her." At the time I didn't understand what that meant. I thought he was just being poetic. But now, standing in that echoing house, I realized. He wasn't talking about property. He was talking about presence. About connection. And maybe, just maybe, the house remembered that too. That weekend, Lily invited a priest over. Or so I heard from a neighbor. They thought it was a haunting. They thought they could pray it away. But how do you bless walls that were built on betrayal? When I heard that, I almost laughed. Because what they didn't know was that I had already left something behind that no priest could wash away. Truth. The next morning, Mom woke up to find an envelope on her kitchen table. No one saw who left it there. Inside was a copy of Dad's original will, the one naming me as the rightful owner. She must have sat there for hours, staring at that paper. Because that afternoon I got another call. Softer this time, broken. "Chloe, I found something." "I know," I said. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you wouldn't have listened," I replied. "You already decided who deserved what." Her voice wavered. "It wasn't supposed to go like this. I just wanted everyone to be happy." I let out a breath. "You wanted everyone to be quiet. There's a difference." That night she came to see me. She looked older than I remembered. Tired, defeated. "I'll fix it," she said. "The house. The will. Everything. I'll make it right." I looked at her for a long time before answering. "Maybe you can fix the papers," I said softly. "But you can't fix the way you chose her over me." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't comfort her. Couldn't. Because for years, I was the one crying while she pretended not to notice. When she left, she said, "You know, Chloe, this house, it never felt right after you moved out. Maybe you were its heart." I almost smiled. "Then maybe it stopped beating when you gave it away." After that night, things changed fast. Lily moved out within a week, swearing she'd never set foot in that house again. Mom tried to stay, but within days, she put it up for sale. And when the for sale sign went up, I drove by one last time. The curtains fluttered slightly, though no window was open. The clock inside the hallway ticked once, just once, as I walked away. Maybe it was the wind, or maybe it was goodbye. Either way, my revenge was complete. Quiet, poetic, and deeply personal. I hadn't burned the house down or screamed my truth. I'd simply made them feel it, the weight of what they'd done. And in the end, that was enough. After the for sale sign went up, I thought that would be the end of it. I thought I could finally breathe again. No more phone calls, no more guilt, no more echoes of that house haunting the back of my mind. But healing never arrives quietly. Sometimes it walks back into your life wearing the face of a memory you haven't faced yet. A week after the house went on the market, I received an email from the estate attorney who'd handled my father's will. The subject line reads simply, "Your father's note, discovered during property review." I clicked it open, expecting another copy of the will. But what I found froze me. It was a scanned handwritten note, barely legible, yellowed with age. It read, "If this reaches you, Chloe, it means the house has changed hands. Don't be afraid of it. There's a truth inside it that only you'll see. Look under the floorboard in the study, the one closest to the west window. You'll understand everything." My heart thudded as I read it again and again. The study. That was Dad's private space. The one room Mom never let us enter after he died. I didn't tell her about the email. I didn't even hesitate. That same evening I drove back to the house. The realtor had left the back gate open, probably for maintenance. The sky was heavy with clouds, and the air smelled like rain. I slipped inside through the old kitchen door, my footsteps muffled on the tile. The study looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I had just outgrown the version of myself that used to peek through its half-open door. Dust covered the desk, and the air was thick with that quiet sadness that lingers in abandoned places. I found the floorboard easily. The wood was slightly warped near the west-facing window. I knelt down, pried it open, and reached inside. My fingers brushed against something solid, a metal tin box. Inside were two things, a small black notebook and an envelope with my name written in Dad's handwriting. I sat there on the floor, the rain starting to patter softly against the glass, and opened the envelope. "My Chloe, I know your mother means well, but she doesn't understand this house the way you do. She sees it as walls and roof. You see it as something alive. Maybe that's why it's always quieter when you're here. If you're reading this, I want you to know that I trusted you with this place not because it's valuable, but because it listens. It remembers who protects it and who neglects it. I fear that after I'm gone, your mother and sister will use it as a stage for their pride, not as a home. When that day comes, let the house remind them. It knows how." I sat there for a long time after reading that. It felt like he had been waiting all these years to tell me that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined the whispers or the warmth I used to feel when I was alone there. The house wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was haunted by memory, by truth. And somehow I had become its voice. I left the notebook untouched for a moment, just staring at the walls. Then slowly I opened it. Inside were pages of sketches, blueprints, notes about the wiring, and even strange symbols in the margins. But between those pages, tucked in like an afterthought, was something else. An old photograph. It was of my mother, younger, standing with a man who wasn't my father. They were close, too close. On the back of the photo, written in my father's neat handwriting, was one line. "The house always knows the truth." That was when it hit me. Dad hadn't just been writing about the structure. He'd known. About the affair. About the secrets. The silence. The tension. The coldness that filled our home in his final months. He'd known everything. And he'd built his final revenge into the house itself. Through wiring, hidden messages, perhaps even the way he set up the old systems that I had unknowingly reawakened. He didn't just leave me the house. He left me his unfinished justice. When I left that night, I didn't take the photo. I put everything back exactly as I found it. The box, the note, the floorboard. Because some truths aren't meant to be owned. They're meant to be discovered. The next morning I called Mom. "There's something you should see," I said. "Go to the study. West window." She didn't ask questions. Maybe my voice told her enough. That evening she called back, but I didn't pick up. She left a message instead. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Chloe, I saw it. I saw everything. You were right, the house remembers. I don't even know what to say anymore. Sorry. For everything." For the first time she sounded human. Small, real, stripped of pride. And for the first time I forgave her. Not out loud, not in words, but quietly. In my heart, where forgiveness always begins. 2 months later the house sold. A young couple bought it, unaware of the history layered into the walls. I passed by once, saw laughter spilling out of the windows, lights glowing warm again. And strangely, I didn't feel anger or loss. Felt peace. I realized then that revenge had never been the real goal. It was just the path to being heard, to reclaiming the voice that silence had stolen from me. My family may have erased my pictures, rewritten the will, and painted over every trace of my presence. But in the end, the house itself remembered me. And that was enough. Before I left town, I stood at the gate one last time, watching the sunlight bounce off the windows. I whispered, "Thank you, Dad. I understand now." A breeze swept across the porch and I swear, the old wind chime above the doorway rang once, softly like a sigh. And that's when I finally walked away. Sometimes revenge isn't loud or cruel. Sometimes it's just the truth returning home, and the silence that follows when everyone finally hears it.